The staff had already said their goodbyes. That's how you know it was bad. When the people who show up every single day, who feed him, who know the sound of his breathing, when they start avoiding his kennel because it hurts too much to look at him, that tells you everything. He was the last dog anyone picked. 3 years of watching other dogs leave. 3 years of the same kennel, the same concrete floor, the same door swinging open for someone else. And then one ordinary Tuesday, a family walked in. And nothing was ever the same again. There's a dog in almost every shelter right now that nobody is choosing. Not because something is wrong with him, not because he's broken or dangerous or unlovable, but because he's been there so long that people assume there must be a reason. That invisible wait, the longer a dog waits, the harder it becomes. People walk past. They see the matted coat, the tired eyes, the way he doesn't jump at the gate anymore. And they keep walking. This is the story of one dog who lived inside that reality for 3 years. 3 years of watching. 3 years of waiting. And one moment that changed absolutely everything. I want to tell you this story not just because it is beautiful, and it is, but because it is real. Because it happens. Because somewhere between the heartbreak of a dog who has almost given up and the quiet courage of a family willing to take a chance, something extraordinary can happen. And by the end of this, I think you'll understand why some adoptions do not just change a dog's life. They change the people who make them. So let us go back to the beginning. Let us go back to the day he first arrived. He came in as a stray. No microchip. No collar. No one came looking. The shelter staff logged him in, gave him a kennel number, and did what they always do. They hoped someone would come. In those first few weeks, he was actually pretty adoptable on paper. Not too old, not too young, healthy enough. He had this quiet, watchful way about him that the staff found endearing. He wasn't loud. He wasn't reactive. He just observed, like he was trying to figure out the rules of this strange new place. Families came and went. They'd pause at his kennel, look at him for a moment, then move on to the louder one down the row or the younger one with the bouncy energy. And week after week, he watched them go. By month 3, the staff noticed a shift. He stopped coming to the front of the kennel when people passed. He'd stay at the back, turned slightly away, not aggressive, not fearful in an obvious way, just withdrawn. Shelter workers have a name for it: kennel stress. When a dog has been confined long enough, something in them starts to flatten. The spark gets quieter. The curiosity dims. It's not a personality flaw, it's a survival response. If reaching out keeps getting you nothing, you stop reaching out. Any of us would. By the 6-month mark, he was what shelter staff quietly refer to as a lifer candidate. That term is heavier than it sounds. It means the staff starts mentally preparing for the possibility that this dog might never leave. They keep caring for him. They keep trying. But there's a grief that settles in, a low hum of it, because they know what he deserves and they know what he's getting instead. Year 1 came and went. New dogs arrived, got adopted, left. He stayed. The staff rotated. Some left the shelter. New people came in, and those new people had to learn his story. Had to be told, gently, about the 3 years of Tuesdays and Saturdays where families walked in and out, and he just watched. There was one staff member, she'd worked there the longest, who made it her personal mission to keep him visible. She'd post about him online. She'd bring volunteers in to sit with him, walk him, remind him that human hands could still mean good things, that there was still a point to trusting. And that mattered. That really mattered. Because when you spend years trying to convince a dog that hope is still worth having, you are doing something profound. You're keeping a door open inside them. Just a crack, but open. Short start here's what nobody talks about with long-term shelter dogs. Everyone focuses on what they've lost, the home, the routine, the love. But what about what they've held on to? This dog had every reason to shut down completely. 3 years of concrete and fluorescent lights and the sound of other dogs getting chosen. And yet, when that one staff member sat with him, he still leaned in. He still let her scratch behind his ear. He still exhaled that long, slow exhale dogs do when they finally feel safe. That part of him never left. And I think that's the part that saved him. Short end. By year 2, the shelter had done everything right. Behavioral enrichment, consistent routines, volunteer socialization programs, foster trial weekends that fell through twice, once because the foster family's living situation changed, and once for reasons nobody really explained. Each time he came back, there was a quiet devastation among the staff, not because they did anything wrong, but because he had to learn again that the thing he thought was permanent wasn't. Think about that for a second. What does that do to a dog's ability to trust? And yet, he kept doing it. He kept trusting anyway. That's the detail that undoes me every time I think about it. Year 3 started with the shelter in a difficult position. Resources were stretched. Space was limited. Hard conversations were happening behind closed doors. The staff who had been with him the longest were preparing themselves emotionally. The woman who had championed him from the beginning made one last push. A final post, a final share, a final plea dressed up as a story. She wrote about his eyes, about the way he looked when he heard a leash clip snap, about the specific way he'd tilt his head when he heard the word walk. She wasn't writing a profile. She was writing a portrait. She was trying to make the internet see what she saw every single day. And then it happened. A family saw the post. They weren't actively looking for a dog, or at least, that's what they told themselves. But something in that post stopped them. Maybe it was the honesty of it. Maybe it was the image of a dog who had waited that long and still had that much left to give. The mother read it to her kids at the kitchen table. The father drove them to the shelter the following Tuesday, not to look around, specifically to meet him. Now here's where the story gets complicated in the most human way possible. When they got to the shelter, he wasn't at the front of his kennel. He was at the back, facing the wall. The kids wanted to keep walking. The father almost agreed. And the mother, she asked the staff member if they could go inside with him. Not look through the bars. Actually go in. Short start the moment they sat down on the floor of his kennel, something shifted. He didn't rush them. He didn't perform for them. He just slowly turned around. And then he walked over, not to the kids, not to the father, to the mother. And he put his head in her lap. That was it. That was the whole audition. No tricks, no tail-wagging frenzy, no big dramatic moment. Just a tired dog choosing someone. And she chose him back. Short end, the adoption paperwork took about an hour. The staff cried. Not just the woman who had championed him, everyone who was there that day. Because they'd watched this play out so many times in reverse. They knew what a goodbye looked like. And this was the other thing. This was the rare, beautiful other thing. He rode home in the backseat between the two kids. The family said he was completely still the entire drive. Not trembling, not panting, just still. Like something in him already understood that this particular movement, this specific car ride, was different from all the others. The first few weeks at home were not perfect. Let us be honest about that, because the story deserves honesty. He was overwhelmed by the house. He startled at sounds that wouldn't register to most dogs. He had one bad night in the first week where he paced for hours, and nobody knew what to do. The family had been warned about this. That long-term shelter dogs often experience a kind of decompression period, sometimes lasting weeks, sometimes months. The nervous system that kept him functioning in a stressful environment needs time to understand that the stress is over, that the threat isn't coming. But the family didn't flinch. They created a small, quiet space for him. They kept the routine consistent. They didn't push. They just showed up every day with patience and food and gentleness and let him come to them on his terms. And slowly, steadily, he did. By week 4, he was sleeping through the night. By week 6, he'd claimed the end of the couch. By month 3, the kids reported that he had started meeting them at the door when they got home from school. That small thing, that small, enormous thing, made the mother post about it online. And that post found its way back to the shelter. And the staff member who had written that final plea, the one who had described his eyes and the way he tilted his head at the word walk. She saw it, and she wept. Because she had held hope for this dog for 3 years. And hope, when it finally lands, is almost too heavy to hold. Here's what this story is really about. It's not about a lucky dog and a good family, though it is absolutely that too. It's about what happens when someone decides to see past the surface, past the withdrawn posture and the back of the kennel hiding, past the 3 years of baggage that isn't really baggage at all. It is just evidence of how long he waited for the right moment. Every day that dog spent in that shelter was a day he was still there, still alive, still capable of putting his head in a stranger's lap on a Tuesday afternoon and choosing trust one more time. That family didn't rescue a broken dog. They recognized an unbroken one. And that distinction, that shift in how you look at a long-term shelter dog, might be the most important thing you take away from this story. Because there are dogs in shelters right now, today, who have been waiting. Not because they've failed, but because the right person hasn't walked in yet. And sometimes, the right person just needed to hear a story like this one first. If this story hit you the way I hope it did, take a second and share it with someone who loves dogs. Not because of the algorithm, just because stories like this deserve to travel. And if you are in a place where you are considering adoption, I'd encourage you to ask about the long-term residents next time you visit a shelter. Ask who's been there the longest. Ask to sit with them. You do not have to perform certainty. You just have to show up. Because sometimes a dog who has waited years isn't waiting for the perfect family. He's just waiting for a family willing to stay on the floor long enough to let him come over. That might be you. Thanks for watching. If you loved this video, scan the QR code on the screen right now to subscribe and join the Pawsome Life family. Give your dog a belly rub for us, and we will see you in the next video.